Afternoon, everybody. We're going to resume today's session. So it's a little bit after quarter after. Sarah, go ahead and introduce our next presentation, please.
Great. We are resuming the CIP presentations for FY 26 through 31, and our next presentation is the Department of Housing and Community Development, and we're joined today by the Chief of Staff, Scott Davis.
Are you controlling the slides?
Right there.
Or, okay.
I can if you'd prefer, but you can do it yourself.
I can do it. Yeah. All right. Good afternoon. I am pleased to be before you to present DHCD's capital budget. As Sarah mentioned, I am Scott Davis, Chief of Staff here at DHCD, and I will be presenting as Housing Commissioner Alice Kennedy, unfortunately, is out of town at a family funeral. With me today, we have a team from DHCD, including our Chief Operating Officer, Theo Gogongang, Executive Advisor to the Housing Commissioner, Stacy Freed, Deputy Commissioner for Consolidated Planning, Mary Correa, Deputy Commissioner for Home Ownership and Housing Preservation, Nicole Hart, Chief Fiscal Officer, Dr. Marvin Bly, Chief of Policy and Research, Kimberly Rubens, Chief of Strategic Communication, Tammy Hawley, Chief Equity Officer, Glenda Curtis, Assistant Commissioner for Land Resources, Tamara Woods, Director of Neighborhood Development and Outreach, Matt DeSantis, Director of Grants Administration, Paul Stanford, Director of Project Finance, Stephanie Estrada L., Public Information Officer, Brian Lassan, and our redevelopment strategy planners, Michaela Brent and Femi Epps. And while not here, I would also like to recognize the work of all of DHCD's over 400 employees who make this work happen on a daily basis. I want to also thank the Planning Department for their continued partnership on the city's comprehensive plan, Our Baltimore, Your Baltimore. The CIP process plays a key role in achieving the outcomes of that plan as we consider the resources necessary for the resources needed for the necessary physical improvements across the city. As you know, our capital needs for affordable housing and community development continue to be higher than available resources. As a result, we have worked to prioritize and target our funding requests in a way that meets the most urgent needs, in a way that also best leverages all available resources. We also strive to ensure that our work embodies the agency's equity principles. Our presentation is organized into 3 sections: background, FY26 requests, and conclusion. As an overview of DHCD, our mission is for a Baltimore, or our vision is for a Baltimore where current and future residents live in safe and decent housing, in thriving, inclusive, and equitable neighborhoods. You can also see our mission and values, and also our operating and capital budgets for FY25. And as mentioned, we currently have 421 employees. This is our organizational chart here at DHCD. We are divided into 6 divisions: administration, code enforcement and emergency operations, consolidated planning, development, home ownership and housing preservation, and permits and litigation. DHCD followed the strategies in the framework for community development and the Our Baltimore, Your Baltimore, a comprehensive plan for the city of Baltimore when creating our capital budget. As outlined in the framework, DHCD's community development strategy is data-driven, community-led, and based on deep market knowledge. Block-level planning with the communities guides the strategies used to tackle vacant properties, vacant lots, create affordable housing, and complete communities. That block level planning work rolls up into this financial model, which is data driven and uses cost factors based on historic and current investments. The activities here range from demolition and stabilization to home repair assistance, down payment assistance, and infrastructure construction. Important to note that we view infrastructure as not just roads and pipes. This is about communities having all of the necessities to thrive. That includes items such as sidewalks, ADA compliant street corners, maintain green spaces, recreation spaces, lighting, and trees. As part of the partnership with Build and GBC, the firm PFM out of Philadelphia completed an analysis of the $3 billion vacants investment strategy to gauge the return on investment. As you can see, in 2038, the return is greater than the investment and then exponentially increases. On the left-hand side are some of our agency assets, and on the right-hand side are some key asset upgrades that are both recently completed and in the pipeline. Of special note is the enterprise technology system, which is the replacement of the current permitting system, and we are at a stage where that will go live February 3rd, 2025. For our recently completed projects, these are projects that we've been able to execute thanks to CIP. Progress continues to be made on the Perkins Somerset Old Town project. In 2024, we celebrated the completion of Perkins Phase 2, Perkins Square, which has 156 units of mixed income rental housing. We have our housing repair assistance programs. This program supports the preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing and is a key component in preventing new properties from becoming vacant. Like our other rehab and repair programs, it helps create generational wealth through continued home ownership. This work is continuous in supporting new residents every year. What you're seeing in the photos on the right is an example of the critical repair work funded through CIP. We also have 1313 Druid Hill Avenue. Located in our West Impact Investment Area, it is an anchor in Upton's Marble Hill neighborhood and is also listed on the National Register of Historical Places as the home of the friendless. CIP funds supported the stabilization of the roof and building, and the property was put out for an expression of interest in fall of 2024 as the next step in seeing this property renovated and once again becoming a thriving part of the Upton community. Uplands Phase 2. Uplands is one of the city's largest redevelopment initiatives, and it has been underway for over 2 decades. We are so excited to highlight that there has been such significant progress in the recent past. In December 2024, we completed the infrastructure work and the rental housing building, which consists of 150 mixed income rental units, of which 141 of those are affordable. Phase 2 also consists of 218 for sale units, and of these units, 135 will be affordable. The developer is currently identifying a home builder to begin construction of these for sale units. I'd now like to turn to some of our projects that are currently under construction. The 2200 block of Druid Hill Avenue is a completely vacant block of row homes also located in the West Impact Investment Area. It is a high priority block as it sits across the street from the planned Cab Calloway Legends Square Park, which is currently under development, and also the nearby Bakersview project, which will be discussed in a moment. FY25 funds are supporting the redevelopment of this block, which is critical to this overall success of this neighborhood, and fencing is up and construction will begin within this quarter. Next, we have one of our real success stories, the 800 blocks of both Harlem and Edmondson Avenues, also in Upton. The 800 block of Harlem was completed in November 2024, and homeowners have already moved into the renovated properties. In fact, in just pure coincidence, the woman in the Raven sweatshirt who is cutting the ribbon had just finished moving into her home an hour before the event began, and she even had some assistance from Mayor Scott in moving in her final boxes. The redevelopment of the 800 block of Edmondson is now underway, and we are excited for this partnership to continue the work that has happened on Harlem. It is a stellar example of what we refer to as our whole block strategy of vacants abatement, which encompasses not only the renovation of vacants, but also placemaking, green space, and support to current residents. As mentioned, PSO continues, and we continue with Somerset Phase 4 and Perkins Phases 4 and 5. Over the entirety of the PSO footprint, this is nearly $1 billion in investment, and it includes significant amenities and infrastructure for the neighborhood. This includes the redevelopment of the 400 block of Old Town Mall, a new City Springs Elementary Middle School, 2 new parks, the McFadden Learn and Play Park and the South Central Park, and also a renovated and expanded Chick Webb Rec Center, which is currently under construction. NHP Phase 1 for the Park Heights major redevelopment area is a project that is funded in part through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This project also has significant ARPA investment. The project is located along the 4700 block of Park Heights Avenue, and this first phase includes the 100-unit affordable senior rental building, which is currently under construction, and also public infrastructure for the site, and a 50-unit mixed-income multifamily building, and approximately 17 units for homeownership. We also have the Bakersview 2 project, which is led by the Druid Heights Community Development Corporation, a long-standing community-based nonprofit. Bakersview is a multi-phase homeownership project with a vision of building a total of over 50 homes. Phase 2 is the construction of 8 new units on the 2300 block of Division Street. This is an affordable home ownership project with sales prices at $185,000, and in order to be eligible to purchase, household income cannot exceed 120% of AMI. I'd now like to turn to review of our FY 2026 budget requests. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. The goal of our CIP request is at its root to support Mayor Scott's $3 billion plan to reduce vacant properties in the city. This slide shows that through the strategic deployment of resources, which include our CIP requests, over a 15-year time period, we can effectively eliminate vacant properties and get to a functional zero. There will always be the possibility for new vacants to come online, but we will be able to swiftly address it in a functional zero state. Over the course of those 15 years, as we move to a functional zero of vacant properties, we will achieve the outcomes depicted on this slide. Those include, for example, completing 10,500 home repair grants, 11,000 acquisitions of vacant properties and lots, and 4,000 demolitions. And these numbers correspond to the earlier chart showing the costs of the interventions. Equitable community development is at the foundation of all of our work as we take on the heavy task of undoing the legacy of redlining and housing segregation. The map on the left is race by census tract, with green representing neighborhoods with a majority of Black residents. The map on the right is the concentration of vacants. As you can clearly see, Baltimore's vacant properties are extremely unequally distributed across the city, with the greatest number found in neighborhoods where residents are predominantly Black. To address the unequal distribution of vacants in the city, DHCD has equitably deployed our resources to those neighborhoods with the greatest number of vacants. This map shows an overlay of our geographies of focus, highlighting that we have equitably focused our work and resources in neighborhoods with the greatest number of vacants. We have three primary types of priority geographies that inform our work that consist of our impact investment areas, our asset building neighborhoods, and neighborhood strategic blocks. These categories and what is needed in each community informs our CIP request. Inclusive of all funding sources, DHCD's total CIP request for FY26 is $71,650,000. This includes federal, state, and city funds. We have a strong vision concerning the housing needs of the city, and we do our best to be as strategic as possible with the historically limited capital resources available. We prioritize our budget through alignment with the mayor's pillars and the vacant reduction strategy. This is reflected in our impact investment area work and the way in which the majority of our projects requested here tie in to these two priorities. Equitable investing in disinvested communities with high concentrations of vacant properties. This is reflected in our community development framework, and our capital spending is in projects that both protect and spur home ownership and build Black wealth. Also guiding or prioritizing our budget is creating and preserving affordable housing. This is reflected in investment in projects like Uplands and PSO, and also the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is an example of how DHCD's capital budget is used to create both affordable home ownership opportunities. Home funds also provide critical capital to build quality, affordable rental units. Strategic investments and leveraging resources. This is reflected in capital requests like developer incentives for the Gompers building, which is a key development site in the Broadway East impact investment area. Our three new projects for the FY 2026 to FY 2031 CIP period are Hope Village 2, PO Homes, public right-of-way infrastructure, and site preparation. This is the first of two slides of all of our CIP projects that support the mayor's vacancy reduction and prevention strategy, and we consider to be our high priority projects. There are a total of 13 projects from our FY 26 request that support the vacancy reduction work. This map shows the location of DHCD's CIP projects in the city. And as a note, some of our projects are citywide, such as housing repair assistance and home ownership incentives, and therefore are not reflected on the map. Of our request, first and foremost, we have our impact investment areas. This is critical funding to continue our acquisition, demolition, stabilization, rehab, and home repair work in the 7 impact investment areas in the city. These neighborhoods are important areas of investment because of their high concentration of vacants and historic levels of disinvestment. Next, we have 1701 East North Avenue, known as the Gompers Building. Funding is needed to help stabilize and incentivize redevelopment of this building, a cornerstone of the East Broadway impact investment area and neighborhood standing at the corner of North and Broadway. Renovation costs for this building and its current condition is estimated to be over $50 million, and it is highly unlikely that it will be successfully renovated without significant subsidy. This capital requested here will be used as an incentive to a development team that will be selected through an RFP process. And the funding will provide seed money to leverage other funding that would be utilized by the selected developer. Next, we have the Coldstream Homestead Montebello acquisition and demolition. These funds are critical to continue the work that we are doing in the CHM neighborhood, which is one of our 7 impact investment areas. In partnership with community leaders in the neighborhood, vacants on key blocks of Abbotston, Gorsuch, and Carswell streets will be demolished and or renovated for productive reuse. Our housing repair assistance programs, as mentioned earlier, is a program that supports new residents each year. Our low to moderate income homeowners often need emergency assistance to fund health and safety related home repairs. And in many cases, these families do not have the cash, the credit, nor the equity on hand to be able to fund that critical repair work. There is an overwhelming need for assistance with emergency repairs, including roofing, plumbing, water, and sewage line replacement, furnace replacement, accessibility improvements, and major repair for structural integrity and code compliance. This funding request will help provide these critical repair grants to our residents. Our lead hazard reduction program, this funding is necessary to ensure that children and their caregivers live in homes that are free from lead. It is also a required match for the city's new federal lead hazard reduction grant, which is a 5-year grant that started here in FY25. As lead exposure in children is linked to poor outcomes, including reduced IQ, learning disabilities, and behavioral problems, it is crucial to ensure that Baltimore's next generation grows up in safe and healthy lead-free homes. Next, we have housing upgrades to benefit seniors, referred to as HUBs. In Baltimore City, there are 86,161 adults over the age of 65, representing 15% of our city's population. And there are 60,601 households containing at least one adult over the age of 25, at 24% of all households. Because older adults are more likely to live on a fixed income and experience limited mobility, they often have substantial housing needs. In Maryland, 1 in 4 households with residents 85 years or older, and 1 in 5 households with residents aged 65 to 74 pay at least half of their fixed income on housing. HUBs help support the presence of naturally occurring affordable housing. This dedicated funding for older adults to assist with health and safety repairs is a priority strategy for these residents to stay in their homes and ensure that the properties do not become vacant. Our Community Catalyst Grant Program is used to provide flexible capital to community-based organizations to promote equitable development outcomes. The key to these funds is that they are unrestricted from typical constraints, such as the HUD formula grants. Community Catalyst Grant funds are available to both new and emergency organizations, and supporting emergency organizations is a key tenet of the CCG funding. For demolition and stabilization, we have requested that in 2 requests, 1 for planned demolition and 1 for emergency demolitions. This project is for properties that will go through the regular legal due process system of planned demolition. Emergency demolition is to complete the demolition or stabilization of vacants that are considered an imminent threat to the health and safety of residents, adjacent property owners, and the general public. This funding also allows us to access CDBG capital in addition to general CIP funds. Our homeowner incentives program is important as given the current economic environment, which is characterized by slow growth, eroded household net worth, strict lending standards, and tight credit, it presents sobering challenges to would-be homeowners, particularly if they earn low incomes or belong to a racial or ethnic minority. This capital is crucial to making home ownership affordable to our residents, thus preserving our housing stock, and which is critical to the vacancy prevention strategy. The Baltimore Shines low-income solar program has demonstrated success via 3 pilot phases for a total of 51 rooftop installations since 2016, all benefiting low-income homeowners and demonstrating significant utility savings for those residents. The city's capital investment will be leveraged against approximately $4.2 million from tax equity investors and $3 million from private lending institutions and foundations. The remaining 990 Baltimore Shines rooftop solar installations are projected to generate close to 2.5 megawatts of clean electricity across the city. With low to moderate homeowners having access to solar and the results being a cost savings, homeowners will be ensured an additional tool to upgrade their homes and maintain affordability of existing housing stock. The Southeast Baltimore Redevelopment Project encompasses the work of PSO. As part of the HUD Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant, we are required to complete the construction of 1,361 new rental units by September 30th, 2026. As demonstrated previously, we are on our way to meeting that goal. As a note, initially that deadline was this calendar year of September 30th, 2025. However, last year, HUD extended the deadline till next calendar year. Like every other project, fluctuating market conditions, interest rates, construction costs, and supply chain issues have driven costs up exponentially. Our request this year is for $3 million, which is higher than previous years, but this is to close the funding gap on the project and meet the HUD-mandated construction deadline. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, as demonstrated, funds a variety of projects across the city used to create both affordable rental and home ownership units here in Baltimore. The funding supports, for example, our community land trusts, which ensure permanent housing affordability, and it will also be helping support the PSO development project. Hope Village is a project that builds new affordable homes on vacant lots in the Oliver neighborhood of East Baltimore. Hope Village 1 was completed this past fall, and that is one of the properties. And of those 13 properties, they are being offered at $25,000. As these homes are being constructed on vacant lots, which in many cases have been vacant for years, there is a need to replace that infrastructure, of which this request is in part for infrastructure needs. In 2018, Baltimore City and HABC received a HUD Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant for the Transform Poe project in Poe Homes, Poppleton, and the Hollins neighborhoods of West Baltimore. Like PSO, this is a joint partnership between the city and HABC. As we get closer to implementation, DHCD has requested funding starting in FY27, so not in this year's request, but within the 6-year period. This is to support the POHOME's redevelopment and infrastructure needs and also provide local matching funds for a future HUD Choice Neighborhood implementation grant. As we close out, the Planning Department asked us to include upcoming policy issues that could impact our CIP requests. There is no greater policy issue than addressing the vacant housing crisis here in Baltimore City. We are so grateful for our partnership with the state and so many other community partners in addressing this challenge. On October 1st, Governor Moore created Reinvest Baltimore, which encompasses the Baltimore Vacants Reinvestment Council and the Baltimore Vacants Reinvestment Initiative, which is the state funding to support this work. In addition of policy issues related to our vacants and the larger work of housing in the city is the citywide housing plan that will be completed this year in 2025. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to present on behalf of all of DHCD's staff our FY 2026 CIP budget. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Questions from the commission? We'll start with you, Councilman Bullock.
Yes, thank you, and appreciate your presentation. Obviously, vacant housing is very important in our district. I'm glad you're prioritizing that. But I did have one issue that's not related directly to vacant housing. It's around housing upgrades to benefit seniors. Right now, I know there are several seniors in our district that are looking for assistance, but it's our understanding that there are no more funds that are available. And so given that, looking at the amounts you're asking for, why isn't it larger? And are you looking at trying to expand some of the capacity for caseworkers and getting that work done?
So part of the HUBS project is a city-private partnership. The HUBS network consists of 9 community partners. I believe 4 are the steering group and 5 are community partners. Each group covers a region of the city. So residents can apply both through the community partners or directly through DHCD. Given that there are a variety of different funding sources and with the city and with the different partners, we'd be happy to look with you, Councilman, at these specific cases. Obviously, this is an area that we would love to increase the amount of funding, but as we balance all of our needs. But there is funding represented that comes from outside partners that supports the HUB's work outside of DHCD's commitment.
Thank you so much. Large numbers, trying to fit it in here. Just a quick question about the BHIP program. These numbers have been the same for over a decade. Is there any ideas, thoughts, or plans on raising these numbers for incentives for buying into Baltimore?
On the amount offered, so part of it all, relies on funding. We were fortunate with ARPA funds to be able to offer the increased Baltimore City employee incentive, which for, I believe it was about slightly over 200 neighborhoods, city employees could receive an additional $5,000. We recognize that unfortunately, the ARPA funding was temporary, and so that program has closed. We would look and like to work with this commission to identify how we could increase those funds. We also have other incentives that will assist with home buying that are outside of BHIP that will be part of the vacant strategy, which will be coming in the near future.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner McCoach?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allen?
Thank you for an impressive presentation.
Thank you so much.
Just a couple questions. The community catalyst grants, is it possible if you can kind of just send us some information about impact, sort of the number of organizations that were funded, a mapping out of where those organizations were and any sort of impact that you had from the prior year of us funding it?
Yes, I obviously don't have those numbers offhand, but we can definitely provide the Planning Commission with those numbers. In addition to the capital CCG grants, we also offer operating CCG grants, so we can provide information on both the awards of capital and operating. We have Director of Grants Administration, Paul Stanford, who oversees the CCG program, so we will work on getting that information to you.
I think it's a great program. Just wanted to kind of get that information. And then can you remind me about this Affordable Housing Trust Fund? Is this a legal mandate, or is this sort of an agreement that we've made that every year through this process we will contribute a certain amount? This is 6.5. I'm trying to understand that. I think.
Councilman?
It's an MOU.
Director?
It's an MOU between the city and affordable housing advocates.
And I'm smiling because it goes back to a piece of legislation that got passed in our first term that Councilmember Ramos was an advocate for, but it's an ordinance. It's something that we're mandated to do now.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
tied
the
to a
amount.
transfer of
And that's the
recognition
amount, the 6, okay.
Any questions from the mayor's office?
Thank you for your presentation. No questions from the mayor's office.
Thank you. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. So Councilman Bullock asked about the Hubs program, and it sounds like from his question, we're able to distribute all of that money. Basically, that money gets spent every year. Broadly speaking, and I'm not looking for a to the penny number, but is that true for most of your programs in the $70+ million that we allocated last year? Did most of that money get spent?
So of the construction programs, some of those are multi-year programs where funding is in the process of being drawn down. And so I could not speak to all of it, but I know that we do, given the nature of capital projects, it can sometimes take a period of time just where they are in the stages. But we are working with our partners to move those projects along as quickly as possible. For our kind of more focused home repair programs, there is definitely the need, and we are working through getting that money out to our residents in those programs.
Great, thank you. Are there perhaps other examples like Hubs of programs that tend to run out of money before the year is over?
Deputy Commissioner Hart, is there?
We have an emergency roof repair grant that.
I'm sorry, you'll have to come up to the microphone if you want to share.
This is Deputy Commissioner for Home Ownership and Housing Preservation, Nicole Hart, who oversees our home repair programs.
We have our emergency roof repair grant program that's through CDBG that usually runs out of money, and that is for older adults, 65 and older. And then we have our deferred loan program, which is a zero interest deferred loan program that generally runs out of funding. But like Scott said, it goes over fiscal years. And then, it depends on the project, how long it's going to take. We did have ARPA funds that we were allowed to help additional people. Of the home repair ARPA grants, most of those have been spent down. So ARPA is no longer. So we are very dependent on whatever funds we get because like he said, the requests are great.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. So my next question is about the Hope Village project. Wonderful project. I'm glad to hear that phase 2 is moving forward. So I see in the budget we've got $2 million allocated for the next 6 years. And so I guess my question is, I don't think that phase 2 is a 6-year project, so is that an anticipation of a phase 3, 4, 5? And also, you quoted the $25,000 figure, which is incredible. Obviously, you could build a lot of $25,000 houses for $2 million, so wondering if you could kind of just talk about that a little.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up Assistant Commissioner for Land Resources, Tamara Wood, who can help speak to more of that. And just as a note, that is what they are selling the homes at, not what it is costing to construct them.
Understood.
Sure. So Hope Village, we're super excited about, and I don't have a lot of information to share with you now, but at the end of last year, we did start more conversations to start looking for additional sites for next phases. So we do anticipate this year honing in on some additional sites and starting next phases.
Great. We got some sites for you on the west side.
Well, send them over. Yeah, we're excited.
All right, that concludes my questions. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone online with a question or anyone in the audience that has a question for DHCD? Councilwoman, you can step up and ask your question.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the DHCD team and to Chief of Staff. I just wanted to follow up on my colleague's question around hubs. The worry that I have, and I have Civic Works in my district, they are one of the hub sites. And, we have such a backlog of projects that need to get done in terms of helping more residents. And so we actually need operating dollars to be able to hire more case managers and caseworkers and to get that pipeline through. So my question was, on the slides, it said that the $500,000 was general funds. And if that general funds is going to that operating, or is it going to be for more projects?
It's general funds capital, PAYGO capital.
PAYGO capital,
So-
okay, because it wasn't clear on the. on
Yeah,
the
so
slide.
that would be through the operating budget for operating funds. This is just the capital side.
Got it. And then in the reporting that you had talked about, Sarah, earlier, would some of the reporting include, units produced and things like that as you go through the list? Because all these are great capital projects, we want to be able to show units produced.
That is not part of the reporting that I was referring to earlier. That's something that we can ask HCD to provide.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miles, I see your hand. Feel free. Come on up, please. Keep it to a couple of minutes, and we're questions, not speeches.
Yes, Ronald Miles, RJY Chick Web Council, and want to ask the question in regard to a aspiration with the Oliver Center. HCD had done a nice job as far as doing an assessment because of the conditions, and there's a high expectation in the community that work will start on that particular facility. So my question is whether or not there's any capital appropriation to fix the stuff that was in the assessment, because that's a high expectation on the side of the community.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Can you respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Miles. The Oliver Center has been a cornerstone in the Oliver community, and unfortunately, the current building is in very poor condition and had to be closed for health and safety reasons. We are currently in partnership with DGS and Rec and Parks in the midst of a visioning session with community members about the future of that space and location, as we are not at the point of having conceptual plans or ideas. We have not yet been able to come to request capital funds, but that will be something, whether from us or from Rec and Parks, that we will likely be looking at in the near future of requests.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for the department? Commissioner Allen?
The comments, perhaps a question. Sarah, Sorry. The question I had about schools before, I kind of want to apply that to HCD as well. It seems they are an outlier as well in terms of single year.
Most of HCD's requests are for programs rather than projects, so it's different. So it's not applying for construction funding in a single year. The Poe Homes one is one that you may have noticed that is asked for over multiple years, that is construction. Our understanding is that that would actually be implemented in phases, and so it's being fully funded for the phasing, over those 4 years. And so that's a little bit of an exception because of how that project would be implemented. It's not going to be implemented by the city, where the city needs to have all of the funding up front in order to issue a contract.
Okay, thank you. And my other comment, I almost hate to bring this up, but I think it's important to. I think it was a former commission member who questioned whether these programs, I'm looking at, what's the slide number? I don't know. The Baltimore City Employee Homeownership Program, Buying into Baltimore, et cetera, whether those belonged under CIP. Do you all remember that? I think it was about 2 years ago. And I made the comment that these were important, in my opinion, because they put money into retaining residents and encouraging other people to become residents. And in a sense, that's infrastructure. That's not the traditional sense of the term, and especially in planning. But I think you all, in your presentation today, have actually better defined it relative to the CIP. So I just wanted to thank you for that. You kind of tied it together in terms of how it does fit, in my opinion, how it does fit in the CIP.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Allen.
I've got another question for you. So some of these, obviously, housing, we talk about the real estate market and, the different market conditions in our various neighborhoods and parts of the city. And you talked about the impact investment areas and the strategies there. So I guess my question is, have we seen conditions change around any of these investments? I think that, the strategy is that the thought is that we make these investments and there's a ripple effect and, the market conditions improve around these projects, both adding to the tax base and the community conditions. And so my question is, now that we're happy to see, some of these projects come online, PSO, Park Heights, other parts of town, are we seeing those sorts of positive results? And also, are we looking for them and tracking them?
Yes. The answer is yes to both of them. As mentioned earlier, as part of the framework and the block level planning, it is really driven on that market data. Also, we refer to neighborhoods that we refer as our proof of concept neighborhoods, Greenmount West being one of them, which went from having relatively high rates of vacant properties to now almost none. And we also see that in our impact investment areas, in areas where there have been investment. But that is definitely something that is a key part of the work and keeping track of. And yes, that is the intent, that as in areas where we've had these investments, market forces, others will pick up, and we can then continue to expand our areas of focus in the city to grow off of that strength.
Great. And can you talk just a little bit, that's a great example of leveraging your own investments and, HCD building on what HCD does. Can you talk a little bit about your interagency collaboration and the extent to which we've got strategies around, housing and schools and rec centers, which obviously touches the different agencies, but.
Yeah, probably the best example of that is the new Parkview Rec Center in Penn North on Fulton Avenue, which was the site of the old West Side Elementary School. This is a site that the construction of the rec center is actually being funded with CDBG funds from DHCD, though carried out by Rec and Parks. Where we also come in is in the surrounding blocks. We have targeted those blocks for acquisition and renovation of vacants so that we are building in the community and building off of the strength of that significant investment in the recreation center. So we are currently in the midst of acquisitions. We've had some properties that, this was before we had the in-rem acquisition method, so that went through receivership, that went to auction last year and are already under permit. And so there is a lot of work that is happening there. I would say another area where there has been significant cross-agency collaboration is with the renovation of the firehouse on Holland Street. That is something working with DGS, with fire department, with DOT, DPW, and I forget which other agency was at our meeting. But we are also looking strategically at the surrounding blocks of that investment of vacants to acquire. We are in the process of acquiring properties there, working with DOT around, streetscaping, lighting. So that is an area where we are really working to capitalize on a significant city investment. And so that is something that as we continue and the work of our fellow agencies and their investments in the city, that we work to build off of those to strengthen the surrounding communities.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about Winata? On the slide here about vacant property financial modeling, there's some big numbers here in terms of demolition, acquisition. I know that touches a bunch of neighborhoods, and you noted on another slide that there was no duplication, and so I'm good with all that. But Winata has really been presented to the community as a big state investment. So trying to understand what is the city contribution there, and how does that relationship work?
Yeah, so in the financial chart that I think you're referencing, that isn't necessarily the funds that we have, but rather what we have identified kind of in that financial modeling, which I forget exactly where it is in the presentation.
I don't see it.
It's in one of the beginning slides, like 6 or 7.
There we go. So yes, Winata, a significant amount of that investment is coming from the state. We are working closely with Winata around collaboration with the city, including them in the mayor's neighborhood sub-cabinet, having them as a working group, working in partnership with our West Impact Investment areas. There is overlap with the Winata footprint. And so that amount of what is recognized in there is primarily a significant investment on the state's behalf. But there will be, likely city funds as well that will support aspects of the work within the Winata footprint, which for those that are not familiar, Winata stands for the West North Avenue Development Authority.
Great. Is there anything, go ahead, Sarah.
You have somebody online, I just didn't want you to wrap up, but go ahead.
Sure. Is there anything else that you or Commissioner Kennedy would like us to know? Everyone before you complained about not getting enough money, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that as well.
I am excited about where we are. In my 2.5 years now with DHCD, we have been in a lot of the foundation building stages, in the financial planning and the establishment of identifying funding sources for the magnitude of what is needed to address our vacant housing crisis. A story that I tell as part of why I do this work, my grandmother in the 30s and 40s grew up in the 9th District on the 1800 block of Edmondson Avenue between Fulton and Monroe. It is a very different block now from what it was when my granny was living there in the early 40s. I know what Baltimore was, and I know what Baltimore can be, which can be even better. And I feel that we are at the precipice of great change. Obviously, more resources are always beneficial, but I feel like we are at the point where we have put in the legwork and the foundation building that we're going to see significant change in Baltimore's communities, neighborhoods, and having that thriving, vibrant Baltimore that we all want to call home. And I'm really excited. I'm grateful to the work of all of our partners, community, state, federal, our agency partners, entities such as the Planning Commission, and also, most importantly, all 421 of those individuals that work here at DHCD with me each and every day.
Great. Thank you. Sounds like we had one more question online.
Yeah. I think I know how to do this. Whoops. Okay, John Dre, are you unmuted? Can you go ahead? John Dre, are you
Hi, good
unmuted? Can you go
afternoon.
ahead?
Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Joan Gray Jennings, Executive Director of Druid Heights Community Development Corporation. And just wanted to echo, I know my colleagues at Department of Housing did a fabulous job of discussing the importance of continuing to support development in Baltimore City, but especially in West Baltimore and specifically in Druid Heights. Of course, we are advocating for Baker's View Homeownership Development Project, as well as the long-awaited Druid Hill Homeownership Development Project, which are two huge pivotal projects that would really change the dynamic in the corridor, not only with Cab Calloway Legends Park that will be coming on board, I'm hoping in spring, but also on Black Arts, the Pennsylvania Avenue, Main Street in the Black Arts District, which would just be huge for, in our opinion, the city of Baltimore, where we'll have 30 more homeowners for Baker's View as we continue with Baker's View, and then Druid Hill, of course, 15 more homeowners in that main corridor. And so just wanted to express our gratitude and our appreciation for continued support. We're always supporting and have submitted for several years to CIP funding, and hoping that we're able to continue to receive continued funding from DHCD, but in addition, CIP funding is greatly needed to make sure that these homes are affordable for the low to moderate income families in Baltimore City, and so that they will have the opportunity also to become homeowners. So it would be great. I don't think this is consummate testimony, but I just wanted to echo our sentiments and advocacy for those projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing. And we did see photos of the Baker's View project, so congratulations on that and great work. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, Mr. Davis, thank you. Actually, I got one more.
This is a problem when the person who asks the most questions is the chair.
That's how I got here. The Project Core, obviously a state initiative, but it's something that you guys engage with pretty closely, especially because the lots become your problem after the houses are demolished. And I know Governor Moore's administration has a slightly different approach to Project Core, with more investment in stabilization as opposed to demolition, and that's great. My question is, there are a number of demolitions that were scheduled under the Hogan administration in the first 3 or 4 phases of Project Core that are still waiting to happen. And so I was just wondering if you had any insight on Project Core and how that progress is going.
Yeah. So first, under Governor Moore, that is now part of the Reinvest Baltimore and falls under the funding of the Baltimore Vacants Reinvestment Initiative. So the name Project Core is no more.
Okay.
We are grateful to our delegate, Stephanie Smith, who in last year's session put in legislation that extended the program, then still called Project Core, past its sunset date and also put in a required appropriation. One of the things also, that legislation also enabled the Project Core money to be used for other uses than demolition, including acquisition. This is one of the things also in partnership and in our work with community over the last decade. Some communities, many communities, have turned away and would like less demolition. With Project Core, there was, shortage of funding, and we were not able to do all of the demolitions due to the limited funds. And so we are very excited about the new BVRI, Baltimore Vacants Reinvestment Initiative funds that will enable us to continue to do those strategic demolitions in partnership with community and also be able to use those funds in a more flexible way to bring about those whole block redevelopment outcomes for our neighborhoods.
So is it fair to say that work that may have been scheduled under the previous administration that wasn't finished has, all been reevaluated, and isn't necessarily still
Yeah,
in the plan?
that is all work that our team is working very closely with the state. We also are joined by our Chief of Implementation and Innovation, Mary Colleen Bittner, who is no stranger to the planning department. And I think she speaks daily, multiple times a day with the state and working around kind of addressing where we are now, and with that funding that is part of the Baltimore Vacants Reinvestment Council. And so, yes, things that may have been scheduled but were not gotten to are going to be reevaluated, and, they may still want demolition, or we may want to use the funds for other,
And that's great to know, because in
Yeah.
many cases, communities were told previously that stuff was set in stone.
Yeah.
And so that's good to know also about the renaming, so that'll help us to sort of track those funds and those investments. All right, with that, I'll let you off the hook. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Really
much,
appreciate it.
Mr. Chair. Thank you so much to the members of the commission. Greatly appreciate your time and your interest and your collaboration in this work.
Thank you. We are